please.
Hello, I'm Stephen Debrett and I'm 62.
Thank you. So, I believe you were at Woodstock. Will you tell us
Yes.
all about it, how you came to get there, about the festival and your experiences?
Well, the reason I was there, I was working on kids' camps, and I went over to work on a camp in New York State in a place called Monticello. It was called Kutcher's Sports Academy, I remember it well. And while we were in Monticello one day, we had some time off, I saw a sign going up. And this sign was roughly painted, and it said something like Folk Festival or something, and a big arrow pointing the way it was going. It wasn't a very big sign. And we didn't know really what it meant. And then these buses started turning up. Really extraordinarily painted hippie buses. Never seen anything like it before. And after that we started talking about what's this about, and word got around, and soon word got around that it was a huge festival and you had to go and see it. So on my day off I went there. I went early in the morning, drove over, got within 4 miles of the festival and had to park my car because you couldn't go any further, and then it was walking from there on. But there were some vehicles that could get through, police cars and trucks and vans and things, and people just hung off them. People were sitting on bonnets of police cars and on roofs and boots and everything, and I hung on the back of a truck for a bit and then jumped onto another car, and it was all like, it was extraordinary. I don't know how it happened like that, but I think what I'll say anyway, I got there, I could hear the noise from the distance getting louder and louder, and then eventually got to Woodstock. The first thing I found myself confronted by was the remnants of what was called hog farmers. The hog farmers had this big stand and they were giving away food. They'd been cooking it apparently for ages and were giving it away, and it was practically all gone by the time I got there. The rains had stopped, the fences were down, and it was free to get in. And then the next thing, there was this guy who had his car stuck in the mud. And I found myself organising and trying to get it out. Big, heavy thing, and we were all pushing and trying to get it out. And stuff like that seemed to happen. People would be in trouble or something would happen and you get involved. The other thing I noticed was that on the road to Woodstock, as you enter this little place called Bethel, where it was, all the houses on the route had put their hoses into the garden and switched them on so that people could drink from them. Because the big problem was where to get water from. In Woodstock itself, I managed to get right to the back, and I remember seeing the stage look miles away and tiny little figures on it. The noise was terrific, I remember. It was such a new experience. I'd never experienced anything like it before. And I remember a lot of the people I was working with, young guys, were going to go to Vietnam. And this was essentially a Vietnam protest. It was what really brought the whole thing about. I remember later on in the evening, as the lights started to go down, people sat on the floor. It was like a huge, shallow amphitheatre. People sat on the floor in groups, and little fires started setting up, and I could walk in between all the groups quite easily right down to the stage. So there's quite a lot of freedom in that. But the other thing that happened was that, okay, so in the evening, I can say more about Woodstock, but in the evening I tried to get home, and I managed to get a pile of these programs they were giving away, and I lost my car, couldn't remember where it was. So I went and asked a policeman, and he said, well, I'll tell you if you give me one of those programs. So I gave him a program and showed me where my car was, and off I went. But the next day, the thing I really noticed was that the people of Monticello, which is a reasonably sized town, had started getting really worried about the people at Woodstock because of the rain. And they'd come to the park in Monticello, and there were about 2,000 people in the park sheltering under the shelters there. And the people, the townspeople, started making sandwiches and soup for them. Now, what people don't know and what they don't remember is that there was a big divide between the generations then. And something happened at this time. Something happened on these 3 days where that divide broke down, and it was quite extraordinary. You'd see people giving, because I helped make sandwiches too, and when they were given out, especially if there was, I remember an old guy giving this girl soup, and she just threw her arms around him and started crying, and so did he. And why it was because that never happened before. You never see kindness very easily between the generations, or understanding between them. And there was something extraordinary seemed to happen then. And another thing, strange thing happened in Monticello at the time was that a big car drove through, open top car, and a girl stood up in the back and took all her clothes off, like Lady Godiva drove through the middle of Monticello. And the people that I knew, the sort of middle-aged couple that I knew and their family, just were trying to understand it. They weren't criticising it. They were just trying to. This is what's happening. What are young people doing? What do they want? How do we understand them? Kind of thing. And that was what was happening. A very odd thing. My response after Woodstock was to write a long letter to my mother, which was odd, because that's not the sort of thing I would have naturally done. But anyway, I wrote a letter to my mother explaining the whole thing. And she kept the letter till she died, and I got it back when she died, which was quite moving.
Would you say, it all sounds incredible, I mean, and I love all the stuff about the generation divide. Would you say, I mean, it sounds like it obviously is thought of as a pivotal point of history, Woodstock.
Yeah.
I mean, could you first of all just tell us about the vibe there? You know, it was this huge feeling of brotherly love, and did it have any kind of like lasting effect on you, Stephen? I mean, what were you left with after?
Oh, tremendous feeling. You see, I didn't really understand what was happening. I did know there was an extraordinary identity at that time. If you had long hair and met somebody else with long hair, there was an immediate connection, and they'd help you, or they'd share food, or whatever it was they had. So at Woodstock, there was, even though there were all different kinds of people there was a real shared sense of occasion, I guess, when the helicopters started dropping daisies and things like that. The police, that was a big thing, people being able to talk to the police and them not having a go at them and being relaxed and just hanging out, really, lying in their bonnets and chatting and just being with the people. That was quite something. That was quite an extraordinary thing. There was, somebody burnt down, there was a hamburger stand at the back, I remember, and somebody burnt it down because they were upset about the prices or something. And there was a big hoo-ha about that, and they made a big statement from the stage. That's the only bit of aggression I knew about. There were 2 deaths. One, a guy fell off the scaffolding. He was climbed up the scaffolding, maybe a bit worse for wear, and fell off it. And the other was somebody right at the end was in his sleeping bag asleep, and there was mud everywhere, and his sleeping bag must have been muddy, and he must have overslept by quite a long way, and everybody had gone, and the trucks came in to clear up and drove over him. Didn't see him there, and that was really sad. But that's the only two incidents. There were 2 babies born.